We at Sony have decided that from 2028, all new games will be released digitally. God damn. I knew this was coming, but this fast? Well, by now, you already know that you don't own shit, and I'm talking legally. GTA 6, one of the biggest games ever made, and depending on the edition you buy, opening the box might not even give you the game. Instead, you get the permission to download it. Think about how weird that sentence is. You bought a physical game that doesn't physically contain the game. And honestly, this didn't happen overnight. For years, we have watched discs slowly turn into installation keys. Day one patches becoming the norm, 100 GBs of download becoming normal, always online check became normal. Launching a single player game through 3 different launchers somehow became normal. It happened so gradually we stopped questioning it. We just accepted that this is what buying games looks like now.
But just think for a second. If the game isn't actually on the disc, if the publisher can remove games from stores, if a server has to approve you before you can even play, then what exactly did you buy? The more I look into it, the more I realize this isn't about PlayStation or Xbox or Steam. It's much bigger than that. When you buy a game on Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, or pretty much any modern platform, you're usually not buying the game itself. You're buying a license. Basically, permission to use that game under the company's terms. It's all in the terms and conditions which we never read. Simply put, when you buy a car, it's yours. You can sell it, lend it to a friend, leave it in garage for 10 years and drive it again. Try doing that with a digital game, which you paid full price for. You can't resell it, you can't transfer it, and in some cases you can even lose access to it. Sounds less like ownership and more like a really expensive membership. But before you think this is some weird technicality, last year Ubisoft actually argued in the court that players purchase a limited license to access a game, not permanent ownership, which to be fair is exactly what their user agreement has been saying for years. The time when you used to buy games, you open the case, you put the disc into your console, copy it, and done. Well, that time is officially coming to an end. Today, the same disc often contains only part of the game, or sometimes barely anything useful at all. The moment you insert it, it asks you to download a huge amount of data online. So, at that point, what exactly is the disc doing? It's basically became a very expensive verification key. Nintendo is already pushing the idea with game key cards on the Switch 2. They look like physical games, they are sold like physical games, but instead of containing the game, they simply tell your console, yep, you are allowed to play it. And now with GTA 6 and Sony's push towards an all-digital future, it's becoming pretty clear where this is heading. Physical games aren't disappearing because technology forced them to. They are disappearing because the industry doesn't really need them anymore. Once your purchase becomes just another digital license, everything else becomes easier. There are no used market for games, no manufacturing for this, no retailers taking a cut. The companies have more control, more profit, and that's where things get really interesting. Because if the companies still control the license, what happens when they decide you shouldn't have access anymore? Let's talk about games people paid for and still lost forever. If you're still watching, a simple subscribe would help the channel a lot. Anyways, let's continue. So if you don't actually own the game, can a company really take it away? Turns out, yes they can. And they already have. Let's start with The Crew. I know it's an old game, but it's still true. Back in 2014, Ubisoft sold it as a full-priced racing game. Millions of players bought it, and then in 2024, Ubisoft shut down the servers. And just like that, the game stopped working. Not multiplayer, the entire game. And then there's Anthem. EA announced that the game's online services are ending, meaning once the server go offline, the game effectively dies with them. Another game people paid for that eventually became inaccessible because the servers are gone. And it's not just the online games. Over the years, dozens of games have quietly disappeared from digital stores, their license expired, or the studio shut down, or the publisher changed their mind. One day it's on the store, the next day, poof. Sure, if you already downloaded some of these games, you might still be able to play them, but if you didn't or you lose access to your account, that purchase can become surprisingly fragile. And that's the uncomfortable part. When you buy a chair, nobody can remotely delete it. When you buy a book, nobody needs to authenticate it. But somehow, a video game worth $70 can stop existing because someone somewhere flipped the switch. Which raises an even bigger question. If the publishers can shut down games, who actually controls the ones sitting in your library? Because even if nothing gets deleted, you're still asking for permission every single time you hit play. Even if a game never gets delisted, and even if the servers never shut down, there's still one small issue. It isn't entirely yours. Think about how many games today ask you to sign in before you can even play. Rockstar Launcher, EA app, Ubisoft Connect, Battle.net, Steam, etc. Even for games you are playing alone, somewhere in the world, a server is quietly checking, yep, this person is allowed to play. It's kind of funny when you think about it. A single player game needs permission from some server, and because everything is tied to one account, that account becomes your entire gaming life. Thousands of dollars worth of games, years of saves, achievements, friends, all connected to single login. If you lose access to that account, maybe it gets hacked, maybe you're logged out, and suddenly you're not just recovering an email address, you're trying to recover your entire game collection. And that's something physical games never had. No password, no authentication, no launcher asking you to update before you play. You just played the game. I would like to add a benefit of digital that now bugs can be fixed later. But here's the scary part. Everything we've talked about so far, the license, the launcher, the disappearing of games, the digital-only future, it's all point to one singular thing. Control. Because the more control companies have over how you access your games, the more valuable those games become. Not to you, but to them. So why is the industry moving in this direction? It's simple. Because for publishers, this is a much better business. Think about a physical game. Someone has to manufacture the disc, print the case, ship it across the world, store it on retail shelves, and then the retailers takes a cut. With a digital copy, none of that exists. You click buy and the game is in your library a few minutes later. Almost the entire sales go back to the publisher and the platform. And that's already a massive win. But it gets even better. Remember used games? You could finish a game, trade it in, or lend it to a friend. Publishers hated that because every used copy sold was one less new copy they could sell. Digital games solve that problem overnight. You can't resell them, you can't trade them, you can't even lend most of them. Every new player has to buy another license. And then came subscriptions. Xbox has been pushing Game Pass harder every year. PlayStation has expanded PlayStation Plus into multiple subscription tiers. EA Play, Ubisoft Connects, blah blah blah. All these subscriptions don't just sell you a game. They sell you a reason to keep paying every month. At some point, the goal quietly changed. It wasn't about selling you a game anymore. It's about keeping you inside an ecosystem, buying games, renewing subscriptions, using their launcher, staying on their platform, because the longer you stay, the more valuable you become. Now, to be fair, digital games aren't all that bad. They are convenient, instant downloads, no scratch disk, no midnight store launches, and for a lot of people, that's genuinely better. But convenience always comes with a trade-off. And in gaming, that trade-off has slowly become ownership. Because when your entire library exists on someone else's server, you're not just trusting them to sell you games, you're trusting them to keep letting you play them. And if this is where gaming is today, what does the next generation even look like? If you had told someone back in 2010 that one day we'd buy games without owning the disc, without owning the software, and sometimes without even being able to play them offline, they would have laughed. And today, that's simply how modern gaming works. And look at where the industry is heading. It's hard not to wonder what gaming will look like in 10 years from now. With Sony moving away from physical release, Xbox pushing all digital ecosystem, ecosystem and Game Pass harder than ever, it's becoming very clear that physical media isn't the future these companies are building towards. The next generation of consoles may be the point where buying a disc becomes something that future gamers have only heard about. But if owning your games actually matters to you, there are a few things worth thinking about. Support DRM-free stores like GOG whenever you can. If a physical edition actually contains the full game, consider picking it up. Back up your games where it's legally possible, you know what I'm saying? And support game preservation projects, because preserving game history shouldn't depend entirely on whether a publisher decides it's still profitable. But one thing is certain, we are giving up ownership in exchange for convenience, and most of us didn't even realize it. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. All the support is very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.